Well, I think first and foremost, we have to understand the importance of history. If we don't remember our history, we're doomed to repeat mistakes from our history. This book is about history, a history of Americans and Russians working together for a common purpose. You know, today, when we take a look at the bad state of affairs between the United States and Russia, a lot of people say, how can we possibly get past this? How could we improve relations? But we've done it before. So it's a privilege to be invited to Russia, to have a chance to share this book, to share this history with Russians who played a role in this history. The book not only informs us about the past, but it empowers us about the potential for the future. What I do know is in the 1980s, it was worse then than it is today. When I was in the Marine Corps, I trained every day to kill Russians. Before this treaty, the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty was signed, we almost went to nuclear war several times. People have forgotten that history. And yes, while there is a concern about nuclear war, we haven't actually prepared to go to war with each other using nuclear weapons in a long time. People today are focused on Ukraine and American assistance to Ukraine. But they forget in the 1980s, we were providing assistance to the Mujahideen to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan, another proxy war.
Правильно.
So as bad as things were in the 1980s, we found a way to work together to improve relations. Now, we are heading towards a potential second Cold War, but we're not there yet. And I am hopeful that we can learn from the past to work for a better future. That's why the history that's written in this book is important for today. You know, I've studied Crimea my entire life. It's part of Russia. It's an important part of Russian history. But to come to Crimea and see it in person is a completely different experience. Now, I'm not going to insult the people of Crimea by saying that I've learned everything in my short visit. What I've learned in this very short visit is there's so much more to see. But the people I've met have been very welcoming, very hospitable, very friendly. And the sights that I've seen have been breathtakingly beautiful. And because I've studied the history, to step on the same soil, to see the same buildings, to breathe the same air as those who did things on the pages of the books I read, it's a mind-bending experience. I think there's a Russian word, umupomrachitselnoy. Well, I would disagree with the notion that I'm pro-Russia. I'm pro-American. But I'm also pro-truth. Facts matter. And when we examine the history of Crimea, there can be no doubt that this is Russia. My government may make a political decision not to recognize Crimea as part of Russia. But my government's policies cannot change historical reality. The only opinion that matters, frankly speaking, is the people of Crimea. Do they view themselves as Russian? And the answer I've received is yes, they do. So I respect their history, and I'll speak the truth about their history. I don't make policy, so I can't change the way my government views Crimea. But I respect historical fact, so I'm not going to change the history of Crimea either. That doesn't make me an agent of Vladimir Putin. It makes me an agent of truth. The United States of America is founded on the concept of freedom, especially freedom of speech. So for me to be afraid of the consequences of exercising my right for free speech would mean that I'm afraid of being an American. I love my country. I'm proud to be an American. And I will defend my right to exercise free speech for as long as I live. Governments come and go. The Constitution is forever. And I took an oath to defend the Constitution. And I will do so by speaking freely, whatever the consequences. My audience is the American public. How do you define what the American public is? I have people who are Democrat, people who are Republican. I have communists, libertarians. I have black, I have white, I have yellow, I have brown. What they all agree is that they are hungry for the truth. And I think they appreciate that I am trying my best. I mean, let's be honest, I'm not the most educated person in the world. I'm not a political scientist. I'm not an economist. I'm a Marine. I believe in truth. When I was an intelligence officer, my job was never to tell my boss what he or she wanted to hear. It was to tell them the fact-based truth, regardless of the consequences. And I've taken that same attitude and approach to how I speak on YouTube or what I write. And I think people appreciate that. I mean, if it was a diversion that didn't work, how do you reverse the fall of Bakhmut? You can't change that history. Do you think a little attack into Belgorod changes the fact that the Ukrainians lost 30,000 dead? It doesn't change anything. And any military expert will know little actions like this accomplish nothing. So you got a headline for one day. People click it on YouTube, read it in Telegram. But tomorrow there'll be 50 dead Ukrainians and Bakhmut will still be in Russian hands. So what was the purpose of this? It has no military value. Well, look, the United States and Europe has spent many billions of dollars preparing about 9 brigades worth of Ukrainian forces for this great counteroffensive. But to carry out a counterattack, you need ammunition, you need fuel, you need equipment, you need men. 2 realities have emerged in the past 6 months. Ukraine is running out of artillery ammunition, and they're running out of air defense systems. This means that Russia will control the battlefield with firepower. Will the Ukrainians be able to achieve minor tactical successes? Of course. Will they have GoPro cameras that film these successes? Yes. Will these images appear on Telegram channels and scare people? Yes. But that's information war. Real war is where people die, and Russia's winning that war. If there's a Ukrainian counterattack, all it is a guarantee that those 9 brigades that NATO has built up will be destroyed. The F-16 was designed in the 1970s. I have enough respect for Russian military professionals to believe they understand what the F-16 is. I have confidence that the Russian Air Force has designed tactics to confront the F-16. And I have the belief that the Russians respect the F-16 when American pilots are in it, because it operates as part of an American system of war. Giving the Ukrainians F-16s does not replicate this capability. All it means is we're taking Ukrainian pilots and putting them in a very complicated piece of equipment that they don't know how to fly right. It's not a magic weapon. The Ukrainians flew the Su-27. That's a good airplane. It's as good as the F-16. Where has it gotten them? So you give Ukraine 60 F-16s, that's just 60 dead Ukrainian pilots. And that's the tragic reality. We can give Ukraine all the equipment we want. All it does is extend the length of this war and increase the number of dead Ukrainians and dead Russians. And it's a tragedy. But it's not going to change the outcome of this conflict. Well, let's just start with this basic notion. If this war is still going on in November of 2024, Russia has a problem. It's not a problem of Joe Biden or Donald Trump. It's a Russian problem. It means Russia can't win this war. This war can't drag on like this because the West has tremendous industrial capacity. And if we ever get this industrial capacity working at full capacity, Russia's going to have a problem. So if Russia's waiting for November 2024 for a magic solution from Donald Trump, that's a fatal mistake. I mean, first of all, you make an assumption that Trump could defeat Joe Biden. There's no guaranteed outcome in American politics. And remember, Donald Trump's the man who ran on the promise of, why can't we be good friends with Russia? But did Russia and the United States become good friends? Or did Donald Trump say that I am the American president who was the strongest on sanctions to hurt Russia? I think Russia, like America, should hope for new leadership in America. And hopefully this new leadership won't have to discuss the issue of whether or not we should continue providing support to Ukraine, because Russia should have already won the war by then. And then that new American leadership can talk about how do we repair relations with Russia. And there is somebody today who's put his hat in the ring, so to speak, for politics, named Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and he has an open mind about these things. He understands that it's not good for America to continue to have bad relations with Russia. He's running as a Democrat, and when he first announced, people said he has no chance. But he immediately took 20% of the vote away from Joe Biden. And between now and November 2024, there's a lot of time. And hopefully, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be able to inspire people to support his candidacy. So we'll see. I would say when Bill Clinton first announced his candidacy back in 1991, nobody thought he had a chance to be president. American political history is full of people running for office who people said they have no chance, and then they won. So I'd say Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has as good a chance as anybody. If we're going to challenge the difficult times that we live in, we need people of courage and integrity on both sides. And if we can bring them together, then yes, there is a real possibility for peaceful coexistence between Russia and the United States.